So clearly lots of questions surrounding Libra. Let's try and get some answers from Jason Struhl, Senior Analyst at consulting firm Multivariate. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the basics. What is the sales pitch that Facebook is giving consumers and businesses about why Libra is a good idea?
Their basic assertion is that it's the next generation of commerce as we move towards an increasingly digital economy and mobile spending increases in popularity, predominantly in Asia. I think their pitch is that it's an easier, lower lift integration with lower fees and much greater expediency, although as we're seeing, those assertions are certainly being challenged.
And we certainly saw Visa, Mastercard, eBay, and Stripe all pulling out of the group created to develop Libra all on the same day. What should we read into that, and how much has that hurt Libra's chances of success?
Absolutely. Well, Libra is entering the market at quite a torrid time for Facebook following the Cambridge Analytica scandals and some of the election tampering accusations as far as targeting of political ads. They're entering a fray where you're seeing rare bipartisan support against the idea of Facebook having even more control over consumer lives. So as it pertains to Libra, there's been a lot of pressure from lawmakers who have been individually reaching out to different parties of the association, trying to coerce them not to be involved. Visa and Mastercard had never officially committed, neither monetarily nor on paper, towards being a part of the association. So them pulling out, I think, is pretty clearly a reflection of increased political pressure and them not wanting to be associated with something that's turning out to be quite the fiasco.
Now, there certainly is a need, though. I mean, according to the World Bank, globally, 1.7 billion adults remain unbanked, yet 2/3 of them own a mobile phone that could help them access financial services. So what is it, do you think, specifically that's rubbing lawmakers the wrong way about Facebook's approach to this issue?
Absolutely, and if you look at Facebook's white paper, that's kind of the rhetoric that they're using, banking the unbanked and increasing access to global commerce. But the humanitarianism is wrapped in a veil of distrust, as we've seen in the last year or two, especially. The political and social landscape is not too keen on Facebook at the moment, and given that proclivity for them to sort of rub people the wrong way, as it pertains to privacy and control, it's not surprising that when the idea of having our physical reserves in Facebook's hands, it presents quite a big existential threat. There's this level of implicit trust that perhaps tech giants once had that's been increasingly called into question. And so as it pertains to what's happening right now, I think lawmakers and the general public are feeling especially unconfident in such a centralized giant that already has so much demographical and habitual information on its individual users, now having direct and exerted control into their spending habits.
And you mentioned something very important there. You're talking about trust. You have Facebook with its own set of issues, and then you have a lot of people really still not sure about digital currencies. I mean, we still haven't seen widespread adoption of existing digital currencies. Why would an average consumer or business choose to make transactions using Libra?
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned trust because growing out of the financial crisis was the idea of cryptocurrency as a means of taking control out of the big banks and decentralizing it into a system that no one party could have control over. And ironically, with these new centralized currencies such as Facebook's Libra, there's a big element of the issue of trust. Consumers could, theoretically, and in Facebook's opinion, they would use it because it's an easier on-ramp with lower fees, and potentially could make international commerce more expedient, lower pain point. But as you said, it's the proposition for why consumers may adopt these currencies is far from a given one, and not just Facebook's Libra, but the litany of other stablecoins that are out there, as well as the more traditional cryptocurrencies, are all struggling with adoption, especially as their volatility continues to be forefront.
Now, on top of the coins themselves, we are seeing a growing list of companies who have either launched, in the case of Tencent with QQ Coin, or reportedly plan to launch their own digital currencies. JP Morgan Chase, Walmart, Amazon, and Google all reportedly have these things in the works. Is Facebook just the one who's just sort of the first one out there and inevitably really at the front of what's coming down the pipeline?
Facebook's definitely probably the biggest name out there, and in terms of the demographical information, as I mentioned earlier, that they already have, I think they're probably the most worrisome, and so they're naturally attracting the most attention. It's also just put a target on their backs because of the timing, given all the aforementioned reasons that politicians and the general public has at present to not be happy with Facebook. I think they're attracting a lot of the ire that may have otherwise been targeted at some of these different coins that you're mentioning. But certainly they're one of many entering the space, but they're just one of the few of the very large giants that have already sort of come up against a myriad issues and concerns as an entity.
Jason Struhl there, Senior Analyst at Multivariate. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.